All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today for our monthly market update of what's happening in the real estate market. I'm Hannah Perkey, CEO of Evelo Team, and I have Bob Warner joining us with all of the data and facts. Bob's one of our most senior realtors on the team, so we're excited to have him here to share all of his knowledge. So we'll get started here. So Bob, just tell me last month for August, what was happening in the local real estate market?
Yeah, happy to do that. So last month when we did this, we kind of started a little bit of a different twist on the way of looking at the data and kind of looking back over this 5-year trend. So I continued through with that today. I felt that was kind of important, right? Everyone's thinking there's a big shift coming or a change coming. So probably the better way to see that would be looking back over a longer period of time rather than just month to month, right? So for these first few things that we look at each month, I've done that again. I think what we're seeing right now, so that median sales price dipped down to 250.25 for our market ending August. So that was down 2.9% month over month, but that still puts us up just a tad under 11% year over year. One of the reasons I like to look at these 5-year graphs is you can kind of see there's these kind of, I've always described them as like roller coasters, right? Like the real estate year is a little bit like a roller coaster. So from like April to August, we're going up the top of the highest hill on the roller coaster. And then we have, a few little smaller hills all throughout the year. So I think it's safe to say you can kind of see right here, this dip that we've started to take, right? We've kind of started to take our fall dip. So I think that's important to recognize. And then we'll see as we get into January and February, does that dip continue or does it kind of go back up in March and April? Then the next couple here real quick, cumulative days on market. So we're still really, really down there. We did go up a little bit month over month again. Last month it was 14 days. This month it was 17 days on market. But the important thing to note is that is down 42% year over year. So still a really small number. And then that absorption rate or that month supply of inventory, we seem pretty stuck on that 0.7 months. I think we've been on that for at least 3 or 4 months in a row now. That is down 17% year over year and right in line with what we were last month. And then that last one we kind of take a look at on this front is that percent of list price received. So we're still over 100% on average at 101%. Last month we were 101.6. So a slight reduction versus that, but still up 2.4% over last year.
Yeah, I think that's such an important number for buyers to be educated on it. When we do our buyers consultation to prep people to say, hey, if you see a list price, just knowing that on average it's going for over list price, it's really just being educated of what the market looks like. And that's why Bob shares this information to help you guys understand what we're seeing. And it's crazy because if we would have been able to forecast this last year, I think we'd be very shocked to see how it's tightened up even more. But still some good opportunities, which Bob will talk about. So you mentioned the 0.7 month supply of inventory. So I think you have some good facts of what that looks like played out within a city perspective.
Yeah, so what we've done each month since we've kind of been doing this is taking a look at 5 of our northern suburbs. It happens to be where we do a fair amount of our business, not all of our business by any means, and just saying, really kind of playing out what is the active inventory as of this morning across those 5 suburban areas. And even though we are seeing some very subtle changes in the market, I actually think this is the smallest number. Since I pulled this together. There are only 263 active listings across these 5 suburbs, and only 13 are under 250,000, right? So that just really kind of shows at a kind of granular, hyper local level, what does it really mean to have a 0.7 month supply of inventory?
And do you think, Bob, because we know as realtors that right around when school's starting, we see a little bit of dip in our business because people are very focused on that. They're not wanting to move when they're getting kids back into school. Do you think that's why we see that number being so low right now? Or do you think it's just the time of year with the other factors coming into play?
I mean, I think it's a combination maybe of both. On those early slides, you could kind of see each one of them was starting to take that, crest over that high hill on the roller coaster, if you will. And that does traditionally happen when school starts as we go into the fall season. And then again, usually starts to taper off in that maybe February, March timeframe as we generally start to ramp back up. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how the next few months play out. I personally am interested to see, do we kind of continue a little bit down, which again, keeping in mind, that's just getting us back closer to normal, right?
Yeah.
That's not a drop or a crash per se. Or do we just are we just seeing this seasonal nature that we normally see from, say, September to February, and then it kind of gets robust in the spring again?
Sure. Okay. All right. So tell us some good news. What's going on with interest rates right now?
Yeah, so right now interest rates have still remained pretty low. Again, I've kind of kept the pattern here. This is a five-year look back at interest rates, average weekly from Freddie Mac. So ending last week, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage was about 2.86. So again, there's a lot of variables that go into that: credit score, debt to income ratios, a number of other things. But on average, that's what it was. So we're still seeing that high twos to low threes. But what does that kind of mean, right? If you kind of look back to, that looks like about early 2019, we were up near 5%, right? And so there definitely is forecasting happening to suggest that we're going to see increases in the interest rate throughout Q4 of 2021 and then into 2022. And just real quick, and we kind of take a little slightly different look at this each month, but right now, if you got that 2.75%, right, at a $340,000 purchase price, your monthly payment would be $1,388. If that goes up to 3.75% next year, now instead of being able to purchase a $340,000 house for that $1,388 monthly payment, now you're down to $300. Right. So I know some people have maybe been staying out of the market because they felt the prices were rising too high, but it definitely is a combination, right? You don't want to fail to capitalize on what are near historic low interest rates for the hope that home sale prices don't continue to increase, right? Because you'll probably see home sale prices, maybe they'll tail off a little bit, maybe they won't grow at 18%, maybe they'll grow at 9 or 10. But if that interest rate grows a percentage point, that makes a pretty significant difference in buying power.
Right, right. Okay, so then the other thing to help relieve some of that inventory is always new construction. So tell me what you can update us on regarding new construction right now.
Yeah, so our local Builders Association of Greater Indianapolis always does a good job of kind of putting out stats each month. It's interesting, this is the first month over month decline that they've seen recently. But we know from some of the builder meetings that we've sat in on, right, they're facing some of the same challenges that most of America is: labor shortage, supply shortage, getting the raw land developed so that they can begin to actually build in that subdivision. So I suspect that kind of slight decline in August over August permit numbers is probably related to really just getting land ready around our market area to be prepared to start building homes, right? I think what's most important is kind of taking a crack at this one over here. We're still up 34% year over year, right? So what is the one way that you can increase the supply when there's a shortage of supply? You build new widgets, right? So in this case, we are talking about building new homes. And then again, I kind of have related it back to some of the suburban areas we talked about earlier. Hamilton County is one of the counties in our area that we do a lot of business. They're up year over year, almost double this. They're up 61% year over year, 2021 versus 2020.
Yeah. And this is probably more gut feeling than anything, but I know conversations I was having earlier in the summer, people were like 9, maybe even 12 months out on new construction. And more recently, I've been hearing the 6-month time frame again. So I feel like we're seeing a little bit of a catch up in that aspect, right? Where we were like, okay, 12 months, that's a crazy amount of time for us to try and navigate a person trying to sell and get into this new home construction. So hopefully that 34% is a result or cause of that.
Okay. And so if you maybe put that on the back burner, right, as we head into Q4, into Q1 in 2022, it would be a good time to kind of evaluate those options and see if they're a good fit for you if you are kind of looking at potentially making that kind of move in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Great information there. Any final thoughts to leave us with today?
Yeah, I always try to end with something. So we got a little fact or fiction here, right? So I think everyone is, there's a lot of talking heads, right? And who should do this? And my great aunt said, this is what the real estate market's doing, but they've never held a real estate license. So this is just a few quick facts or fictions, right? Like fiction, I should wait for mortgage rates to drop, right? There certainly doesn't seem to be an indication at this point that we're going to see mortgage rates decrease any further. There is always some fluctuation on a week-to-week basis and a month-to-month basis, but as you can see here, the four main kind of experts that try to predict interest rates are all expecting them to grow half a point to 3/4 of a point between now and Q2 of 2022. So we kind of already went over earlier what that means in terms of buying power. Next, there are no houses on the market. There's a little bit of fact and fiction into that one, I would say. We talk about that 0.7 month supply of inventory, but that still is inventory. At the end of the day, we still have seen an increasing number of single family homes come on the market from January through July. These numbers here are more national numbers instead of just our local numbers, right? We are seeing kind of that same increase and that a greater number of listings is coming on the market each month.
Yep.
And then that last one, that every home is selling for way more than asking price. Certainly, if you would have approached me 3 or 4 months ago, that would have been a little bit more, I think, in the fact category, in the fiction category, or fact category rather. But we have definitely seen, I don't know, over I'd say the last 3 to 6 weeks in particular. I'm not saying there aren't going to be homes that will sell for over list price, but I think in general those are selling for less over list price than maybe what they were between April and August. And we're seeing a greater number of homes that are selling for at or below list price at this point. So I think those are the big kind of little changes that we're seeing reflected if we go back to that first graph as we kind of crest that hill and started to go over.
Well, and Bob, you're pulling that factual data, and we even have felt it as a team because we talk about it. Bob shared some examples he had of getting houses at or below asking price, and we see the same thing on some of our listings. So it still can go both ways, but it's definitely feeling different than the summer for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that's helpful. If you have any follow-up questions or want to dig in more to any of the information we shared today, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll put our contact info in the comments here, but you can reach us at info@eveloteam.com, or via phone, you can call or text. It's 317-863-9011. Thanks so much, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.